Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Very excited again today to be with each one of you, and thank you for your time and your attention. We've got another fantastic guest who, as all of you know, I like to have experts in these guests' particular and respective spaces. And Greg Pettis of Nature-Cide is no exception. Just visiting with them for a few minutes, prepping for this. Really, everyone is in for a humongous treat. Before I introduce him, this episode, as they all are, they're brought to you by my company, Moxie Pest Control. We are growing, as many of you are. We're doing that through a variety of different avenues as it relates to digital marketing and referral programs and direct mailers and all of those traditional forms and maybe not so traditional forms of marketing. One of the ways that we've been doing that specifically is via acquisition. We have found sort of a niche where different operators in no particular market, they're looking to golf more, work less, looking to kind of get onto that next chapter of whatever their life may be. And so if that's you, we would love to have a conversation. I would love to have a conversation with you. You can reach out to me directly on my cell at 480-254-9730. You can email me directly at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. I'm happy to have those conversations and do the best that I can, whether we're doing a deal or not, to be valuable and helpful and a resource. Greg Pettis serves as the VP of Business Development for Nature-Cide, bringing nearly 30 years, it looks like about 28 years of sales and business management experience to Nature-Cide, having founded his own Pennsylvania-based pest control company in 2006, where he still serves as president. Greg is an educator to the pest industry and has received extensive media coverage, including all of the networks that you may think of that come to mind: NBC, Fox, CBS, affiliate stations, and then also all of the industry publications that are, I don't want to say that matter, but the leading industry publications in PMP and PCT magazines. Over the years, he's worked closely with his pest control staff to ensure that customers were consistently satisfied with the experience they received from his award-winning team. Greg, thank you so much for being with me and my audience today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yes, and I'm excited to have you on. You've got a story to tell, and I think that it was back in 2016 that PCT Magazine kind of originally covered the beginning or part of this story. And so maybe we start there if you'd like, or we go even back to some of your operator days back in 2006. But I know that I, for one, and all those listening are learning more about some of the things that you'll share with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started my own pest control company after being in the industry for 11 years. I started in 2006. And back in 2015, I had an experience where I was at my family practitioner for routine checkup, and he was actually one of my customers also. And he mentioned to me that he was on the board of an organization in California that had their own pesticides. And so he kind of got my curiosity. And then he mentioned to me that their products were green that they were using. And this was actually a service company in LA. And so I thought that was great. But then when he said, yeah, Greg, you should try them out, that's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, because I had had so many bad experiences with green products that I just didn't know how to politely say no, thank you. So he invited me to field test the products, and we did. And you mentioned the article in PCT Magazine that was called Going Green Again. And that was in, I think, August of 2016, because they found out that we had a great experience, and it really is an interesting one.
And so, going green, I feel like for at least the last 2 decades has kind of been a catchphrase. I know there's been some that have been out there that have marketed, and I don't think in any malicious sort of way, but products as safe or organic or toxic, and those are some no words for legal people that are listening, and that's just not the case. What had them cover? So as this friend of yours was introducing this company and some of their product line, first you said the hairs on the back of your neck kind of stood up. I mean, was it kind of like, here we go again? I've kind of had this conversation already. I know how it ends. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case, though. So one, what elicited from you that response? One, and then two, how was this, or why was this different after you kind of made the decision to use it, go through some of the field testing? What did you find?
Yeah. So back in 2007, I was awarded an all-green building. It was federally funded. It was a retirement community. And I went to my supplier and I shared with him that I needed some products that I could use in there. And basically it came down to boric acid granulars and product containing peppermint and rosemary. And so I got into a lot of trouble there. People thought I was spraying a sports cream. And I had a lady hunt me down in the parking lot to really chew me out. And so I also had, frustrated technicians, and we ended up losing that account. And so I really had regretted it. And I swore to myself I would never do this again. And so when my family practitioner started talking to me about this, I just was like, well, in the back of my mind, I'm like, no. But, well, okay, you saved my life a couple of times, right? So
I owe you one.
I did it out of respect. And I know he's an upstanding person in the community. So I thought, okay, well, I owe him this. So we have a gentleman on our team at Dominion who I give him all of our new products that come in from the different manufacturers. The product reps will show it to us, and we'll say, okay, well, we'll see if there's a place for in our programs for this. And so this individual, our new product analyst, happened to be more anti-green than me. And when I gave him the Pest Management X2, his eyes kind of rolled, and I said, I played dumb. I said, is there a problem here? And he's like, it's green. And I said, well, I know. So, what's the issue? And he said, are you really making me do this? And I said, what's the problem? And so we went back and forth, and finally he said, do I have to do this? And I said, yes, you have to do this. And so he went out and began to field test the product at different accounts that we had, and he knows how not to get in trouble. And so he kept coming back to me saying, hey, I would like you to get some more of that Nature-Cide product because I can't find anything wrong with it. And then he eventually came back to me and said, Greg, I think you need to go out and run some routes with this product because it's working and I'm not having issues. And
it probably, Greg, pained him to tell you that, and it probably pained you initially to hear it.
I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And I was reluctant, and I was kind of hoping that he was going to be the nail in the coffin for me to not have to deal with green products again. But here he was resurrecting the concept. And so I said, okay. So I went out and I started to field test their product, and I was having great results also. So long story short, I made my findings known to Nature-Cide, and I said, I think that this is something that the industry could use. And then they told me about some other products that they had just come out with, and that they felt would be useful as well. And so we field tested them. And I should say, before we get too far in, that what I found has now been confirmed by not just third-party efficacy testing, but by the Florida Mosquito Control Association. Their journal in 2019 confirmed after a 2-year lab and field study that what we were experiencing wasn't just something that was a fluke, but the data supported it. And so I've been encouraged by that. But so I want to give a little bit of a backstory, if you don't mind. It goes even further back than me. And that is that Nature-Cide started out as a service company that I mentioned, but how they got started was fascinating. It was a bunch of LA firefighters that got tired of just cutting the heads off of these vipers on the driveways in front of soccer moms. because if you have a snake in the house in LA and you call 911, they're sending the fire company. And so they kind of felt like this was bad PR for the fire company. And so they wanted to find a way to keep the snakes away from folks' homes in a way that was safe to their customers. And so they came up with this product and developed a proprietary process for blending these essential oils. And that is how the pest management product was originally born. But what happened was the customers started to report, hey, since you've been making these applications to keep the snakes away, now we're not seeing mice or rats. And then it went further. Now we're not seeing mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks. And so from that, a full-blown product line was born. And what Nature-Cide decided to do, rather than franchise, was to simply offer their proprietary products to the pest control industry. And that is where I came in. And after field testing myself, I said, I think that I can get these products into the industry for you. So that's how that happened.
Well, and you've said a lot there. And one of there's a couple of either comments or follow-up questions that I have. But first, it's good to know, and I know that this has been confirmed, this wasn't just some random success on a few random routes throughout the country. There is some serious weight and study that's gone behind, as you've said, verifying the efficacy of these products and the results. And so it works. I think, though, that your initial response, Greg, has been some of my initial response, and perhaps hundreds or even thousands of other pest operators' response to the going green movement, if you will. And so maybe, and you have been speaking to them, but maybe speak to them a little bit more of, I mean, what do you tell that group that is like, look, I've been there, done that. It doesn't work quite as well as the other stuff, if you will, or maybe it does, but it takes a lot longer. My customers are impatient. They don't have that time, or at least they tell me, or, whatever else. I mean, how would you speak to them in either weaving this product line into what they're using or replacing it completely? Because it works, you're a believer, and many people are, and there's a lot of weight behind it.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. So you have two things that are happening that are going to begin to point companies in the direction of green. One is regulation. We can't get away from that. And if we follow the trends that are happening in Europe, then we really need to start thinking differently. Secondly is opportunity. So we have more and more customers requesting green. And some of that's due to market pressure. Some of it is due to, say, companies wanting to be able to go around saying that they're green, whatever their motive is, whether it is truly because they want to have safer alternatives, or they want to just be able to tell their clients, hey, we have either the LEED certification or we have an organic certification, whatever that is. These are going to become more and more opportunistic for companies like my pest control company, like yours, where if you don't have a green solution, then these companies that we want as customers are going to begin to just kind of turn their heads away from us and look elsewise. And I had that happen to me about 10 years ago. And this company began to have a big distributor pick them up. If I said the name, everybody would know who it is. And they had standards that I was not familiar with at the time. And I just said, this is not standard to industry. And I started to give a little bit of pushback. And without even getting back to me, they said, thank you very much. And I was on the outside looking in. And so I learned a lesson from that. And I'm going to suggest that is going to be the new wave in our industry, that if you don't have certain tools in your toolbox, you will be on the outside looking in. And if it isn't because of opportunity, it eventually could be because of regulation.
Well, and allow me to just a moment maybe share a quick personal experience. I totally agree. Regulation is just doing more and more and more of this, and we're becoming every day a little bit more limited for good reason in the products that we can use the quantities, the way in which we can apply them, where we can apply them, the frequency. I mean, you read the label and it seems to get longer every single day about do's and don'ts, and specifically with the don'ts. But in a similar conversation, we're currently negotiating right now with a company here in Phoenix, that this is their total and complete solution, and they've based all of their marketing on organic, and it is actually truly organic. And it's also not a small company, and so if we didn't, on my end at my company, already have a platform for that, or a department for that, or a service line for that, this wouldn't even be a conversation starter. It is because we do. But as you said, you will quickly find yourself, I mean, just in any given market, there are people that you are cutting yourself off from in terms of servicing them as customers, because that is what they want. And I don't know if it's 5% or 25%. I think it probably varies by market. Maybe it's a little higher in California, a little less in Texas, but those sorts of things. But you are cutting yourself off immediately from a significant part, and not to mention a very premium position part of the market as well. These products are not inexpensive, and I think that consumers that lean more towards a solution of this quality, they understand that and are already prepared and willing to pay a premium for those solutions, to be able to have those solutions on their property, around their gardens, around their kids, grandkids, pets, those sorts of things. So very good. We'll keep going with the story and some of your findings.
So I got the interest of, at the time it was Residex, now purchased by Target Specialty Products, and the parent company is Rent-A-Kill. So Target took our products national, and then we had at the time Univar, then Versaris, the name change there, and then Forshaw wanted in, and Oldham, and we have even more distributors coming on, which will be some press releases coming up about that. And so I say that the fish are jumping in the boat, and it's not because I'm so special. It's because companies and distributors are realizing what you just described, and that is that there's things that are happening in the industry, and if you don't get with the times, you're going to be a dinosaur, and you're not going to have the same opportunities as your competitors, because they have different tools that are going to meet those needs. So in 2015 into 2016, we got Residex interested, and as I said, the rest is history now. But we have the efficacy. So we have products for the inside, our Nature-Cide all-purpose. We have a product that we recommend on the outside, the Pest Management X2, which we have now put in a granular also, which lasts 90 days. And then we have our insecticidal dust that has an 11-week residual, smells very good. And so one of the things that I want to talk about that is becoming huge, that if we had thought about this even 10 years ago being thrown into our laps, we would have chuckled. And that is the whole cannabis cultivation industry. Now, the reason this is a big deal for us is because the Department of Agriculture in the states where it is approved for growing are really regulating this very hard, because it hasn't become federalized yet. So the good news is that Nature-Cide saw this coming, and they actually have their growers licensed. And so they have certified growers on staff, and Nature-Cide is approved by the Department of Agriculture in the states where it is legally grown. Not only that, we have it on our label. So this kind of, I do meetings with folks in the states where this has now become an opportunity, and we have protocols. We have a guideline on our website to help companies that are deciding to get into this. And I'll just say it this way, because when you talk about opportunities versus risk, you better not use anything with an EPA number on the property. I don't care if it's wasp at the mailbox. You better not use anything with an EPA number on a cannabis growing facility. And so this is what I would call extreme IPM, almost as if you're treating a medical facility, like an operating room, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can get in trouble. So one other thing I'll say about that, and that is that the states are not really fond of growers getting their certifications and doing this in-house. If you do that, there is a good chance you're going to get an inspection like every other month because they don't trust that. If there is a third-party pest control company that is using tools like we're talking about, then they might have a conversation with that company, but then they'll back off and just read inspection reports and things like that, because we're talking about a drug now. And that is really, really important that as pest control operators, we're taking that very seriously. But that's an opportunity that Nature-Cide is now on the front lines. And we do offer support to pest control companies that have decided to embark on that endeavor.
I hadn't even considered the applications in the cannabis, medical, recreational, use of marijuana and cannabis. You think about, and it's funny you say, a decade ago we would have chuckled, all of us would have. Mm-hmm. It makes me think what not just that industry, but other emerging industries will look like in a decade's time. I mean, that industry, it's no $1 million, $2 million, $3 million industry. I mean, it is a multi-billion dollar, and that's just not even just the distribution, but think about the applications and industries that it's opened up or enhanced, like people like us, like chemical distribution, or pest application. I mean, talk about some wonderful accounts to be able to have. And as you've said, you better know what you're doing and how to do it. What makes you think so the states don't love seeing then, Greg, that these firms have got their own applicators and are doing it in-house? Is there just maybe a little bit more trust in having those firms or groups hire a third party that's an expert and having them come and do those applications? Is that what you take from that?
Yes, it's kind of interesting to be able to say, oh, it's okay, we got that. Oh, we got that covered. We're doing it. Because as you know, if that person leaves and goes to another company, now another individual comes in, the Department of Ag is not familiar with what they know. And they're just going to be much harder on those growers because it really comes down to trust. It's like that technician that's been on that commercial account forever and you haven't had a fresh set of eyes on it. They can have the opportunity to become lazy, not check that one bait station this time because, it was good last time. And so that kind of mindset can creep in. And when you're dealing with drugs, legitimate drugs, you don't want to have somebody self-regulating or self-governing because it's just too easy to get relaxed. And if you think about how the USDA was originally formed, the whole thing where companies, meat packaging, were regulating themselves and really bad things were happening. And it turned into the wild, wild west. And the Department of Ag does not want to see that happen because the states are now responsible. It's not federally regulated. So sure. They have a clamp on this, and they do not want to see it go wild.
So we've talked a good amount about the past and some of the development of some of these products, some of the field testing. We've spoken a little bit about the future, but maybe let's look from your perspective what the next 10 years looks like. We know that there's going to be more and more regulation. We're going to know and see more of those that are unwilling to change or adapt, go extinct, or not be around anymore. What are more of some of the things you see happening or occurring in the space over the next decade or so, Greg?
Well, if we follow what's happening in Europe, there are going to be a lot of changes coming our way. Some of them, I will have to admit that I will probably have an issue with and not appreciate. One of them is glue boards. Could it be eventually going away? There is going to be a more of an
That'll be a tough one for a lot of people to swallow. Operators.
It's going to be we're going to really have to think differently. I heard a podcast not long ago with an individual named Daniel from Futura, and they're a Germany-based manufacturer, and they're already there in these European countries with the bans on these things. And so they've come up with solutions. And so I'm starting to look at that because as it comes to America, if we it's kind of like when chlordane went away, okay, what do we do now? Right. It put a void in the industry. And so we could be in that position again with some of the tools that we have, whether we like it or not. Look what just happened in California with the ban on second generation
anticoagulants. I can't believe it. And a decade ago, if someone said, "Oh yeah, this is what's going to happen," the same with a couple of decades ago with chlorodyne, people would have said that would never happen. That's crazy. And here we are.
Yeah, so it's a reality that we have to be familiar with. So another one that happened not long ago was back in 2011. The EPA came down really hard on synthetic pyrethroids. We used to be able to paint the house with it, and then they came out and said, "Oh no, you're not doing that anymore." And companies that were treating for, say, overwintering pests like stink bugs and box elder beetles, they had a real issue. You had to get real creative. And so we could be looking towards things like that again. And so I think it's going to hit hard in the rodent sector before anything else because the possibilities of contamination and what have you. We had an interesting situation a couple of years ago here at our company where we had a new health inspector implement FDA regulations on one of our accounts. And I had no idea what it was about. And so I went to the president of the Pest Management Association in Pennsylvania. I went to the manufacturer rep. I went to my supplier, and nobody understood what this was all about. And I had to appeal to the governor's office in Pennsylvania. And they cleared it and said, "Okay, no, you guys are good. You did everything. It's just that this inspector was not familiar. He was new, and he was implementing FDA regulations." Well, interesting enough, after I was cleared, about 2 months later, I got a phone call from a rodenticide manufacturer, and he said, "Greg, remember what happened to you with that?" He said, "Expect more of it because we're starting to hear about it in other states, and there is a chance that they're going to go to more of this business model." And I was dealing with a restaurant where they were flagging my bait stations in the basement. And
wow.
I was trying to understand what is going on here. And so I realized that, this is kind of how it starts. You get a flare and you look at it and you say, is there going to be more of those? Or was that just a freak accident that flare went off? And so I believe that as an industry, we're going to have to look at everything we do, especially if it involves a chemical and it's something that is not what we would consider organic or green, and take a second look and start coming up with alternative applications and solutions.
So, Greg, you're an out of the box thinker. Nature-Cide thinks out of the box. Have you thought much about solutions for glue boards if those go away? I mean, what do we do?
Well, so it's funny that you've asked this. So I'm currently working on a program which I refer to as herding rodents into a kill zone using and utilizing repellents. And so Nature-Cide does the RX2 product does have a repellent in it, and we're able to herd the rodents into areas where we have other things set up like snap traps, glue boards, or rodenticides. And so I'll give you an example. We had one where we had a farmer who had a barn where rats were tunneling up underneath the siding, grabbing the feed and just going below ground with it, which, we've all seen that. But so we couldn't do anything in that area. We couldn't set up any snap traps. We couldn't set up any glue boards. They would probably be covered in a day. And we weren't going to be able to put any rodenticides in that part of the barn. And so what we did was we treated the burrows with all natural products that we knew were going to repel them and keep them out. And we herded them over into another part of the barn where we had rodenticide set up, and they consumed almost all of it. Now, the challenge that is that when you have an infestation like that, they've probably hoarded quite a bit underground. And so you need to make it uncomfortable for them to want to move on and abandon that food source. And that's what we did. And we said, we put up a sign that said, "Do not enter. You're not coming this way," utilizing all natural products. And so it's a different way of thinking. But the farmer was happy. We didn't endanger the cattle. And we achieved the end result, which was eliminating the rodents, but we did it where we wanted them to go. So for the customer, it's out of sight, out of mind. I love being the one to be able to tell the customer, "Oh, by the way, you had some rodent activity." And they say, "Well, how do you know? I didn't see anything." You say, "Well, ma'am, they ate the bait up in the attic, or they ate the bait in the crawl space, or whatever." And so for the customer, it's out of sight, out of mind. Well, it's even better if you can keep them out in the first place by using a product that's repellent on the exterior, such as the Pest Management X2. Do some exclusionary techniques, whether you're using Stuff It or something else, or some type of foam repellent. These tools are things that are, if you start to think outside of the box, can be additional revenue, but also eliminate the possibility of them having a callback because you had an outbreak for whatever reason. So becoming more proactive in your accounts, especially your commercial ones, is something that is really going to be futuristic for us. If you're not already doing it, thinking extreme IPM, you're going to need to.
So, Greg, thank you so much. As we start to kind of round this out, I certainly want to give you the last word, and not even a plug, but you already spoke a little bit to the operator that wants to go green, but has kind of been in that situation. Look, it's just not as effective, and I get better results with this, and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Nature-Cide has evolved a lot. Nature-Cide's product line has evolved a lot. Like you said, it kind of started with keeping some snakes away, and then some rodents away, and then some fleas and ticks and mosquitoes away, and now it's much, 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 much broader than that in a pretty short period of time. What aside from being organic and more eco-friendly, what are some of the competitive advantages from your perspective that the Nature-Cide line has that other product lines perhaps don't? That perhaps they don't.
So thank you. That's a really good question. So I would say right away, the advantage that Nature-Cide products has right out of the gate is the fact that they smell good. Now, I've had my customers, I ask our customers a lot of questions about this because that was the number one reservation I had previously. And so our products actually smell really good. The customers like it. Our customers say, "Oh, it smells like Christmas." I'm not sure what that means, but I say it's probably a good thing. And so, but we don't get objections right out of the gate like I did with other products. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I'm going to suggest is that we have labels that are extremely user friendly. So with our all-purpose product, which kills bed bugs instantly, you can pretty much spray it anywhere you want. And so you can also use it to wipe down objects. If you think there could be a potential for, say, bed bug eggs or something like that, you can use it as a cleaning tool. And we were actually selling to the janitorial and hospitality industries. We still do for all-purpose product, but it has a nice fragrance. And you can also use it in places where you can't use other products. So that's my big thing is when we're talking about labels, the label is the law. So we have a very liberal label, and there isn't too much that you can't do with our product line. And so I even have guys using the Nature-Cide insecticidal dust as a wettable powder now because they can. And so I would just say the versatility of the product line is what makes it really a great tool.
Wonderful. Greg, thank you so much again for your time. I'd love to have you on again. Wonderful to hear your story and wonderful to hear some of the neat, innovative things that Nature-Cide is doing now that all of us as operators will continue to be able to do into the future as more traditional or maybe other alternative go-to products are becoming more and more restrictive, and beyond that, just becoming unavailable for us to use because someone somewhere says so. And so we've got to adapt and change and that sort of thing. Thank you all of you for patching in and listening. These will drop every Thursday. And until then, create a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.